every now and then whenever I post something and I mention Jesus, people assume that I'm talking to the unbelievers. I'm not really talking. I'm talking to the believers. Every time I think about talking about Jesus and stuff, I'm not trying to convert people. I'm really talking to people that already believe in Jesus or people that have heard the Jesus word. And it's philosophy, whenever I'm talking about it. I'm not talking about it like people are already accepting all of it. I'm just saying that um, it's a common denominator of how our society developed, the morals and stuff that some of our common rights are based upon come from Jesus's teachings, and they come from other places too, but the only ones I understand are from Jesus's teachings. And what I'm really trying to do is I'm trying to affect the ones that seem to be really easily swayed um, by politics and all the junk that goes on in our country. I mean, in America, and just misinterpretation of what Jesus was saying. I'm trying to fix. I'm trying to fix the things that people misinterpret from the word. You know, and there are people that will say, "Well, you can't believe in truth." There is truth. There is truth there. Um, the people who don't want to believe there's truth are the people uh, that don't want rules. They don't want morals. They don't, they're the ones that don't try to fix anything. They don't. They're kind of just they just go with the flow, and and Christians are kind of like that, but they're more. They have rules. They have understandings, and you know they're supposed to be concerned about others, and they're not supposed to be concerned about who's going to heaven and all that. And it's that's all I'm saying. I'm just talking to those people. But the people that they'll just go through and they'll see like Christ, or they'll see Jesus, and then they'll say, "Oh, it's fictional. It's all this mythological." And I said, "Well," I told this guy, I said, that said that, I said, "In 2,000 years, your ass is going to be fictional too." And I said, Jesus got about over 1 billion followers, and I mean, they're statistics. I mean, you can apply statistics that say that if somebody has that many followers in 2,000 years, the guy likely existed. Okay, very likely existed, and whether or not you believe all the miracles he did, that was probably to prove that even if miracles did exist, there would still be people who would argue against it. So no matter what, if you were a important figure and you had something to say, and people could even elevate it to have more magic to it, but in order to emphasize it and try to burn through the ideas so that people would understand stuff. So whether you believe the miracles or not, the philosophy still stands, and the philosophy makes sense. And there's also stuff in it that is pretty magical, um, when you think about it deeply. There are people that can write stuff today, and in about 100 years, it'll be completely irrelevant. But that stuff was written 2,000 years ago, and it's still relevant. You know, that's saying something. I wonder how long. I wonder how long much of the stuff that was the philosophy that's been written in the last 500 years or 1,000 will even matter in 2,000 years from now, you know. And I bet a million that Jesus will still have people talking about him 2,000 years from now. And the thing that really makes his story strong is that he started from a low place and was elevated and then was thrown on a cross because why a cross? Rome's worst form of punishment, they wouldn't even apply it to their own citizens, and they were pushing it. They went into it pushing and screaming whether or not to have Jesus on the cross. And it was the Jews, his own people, that pushed him onto that cross. And the reason why they pushed him onto that cross, because he would not rise up and overthrow the Roman government. Other things were in that the Jewish leaders, the people that were following the Torah, the Old Testament, the old rules, the old law, thought that Jesus was blaspheming the whole time. They didn't believe he was the Son of God. And so they thought he was blaspheming the whole time. And so it was a combination of things. It was a combination of people that were just completely upset because this guy was having such an effect over their culture that they couldn't do anything. They wanted the old way. They wanted to stick to the old laws and everything like that wasn't working at all. And what he was saying was changing people, and changing people that believed in the old law, but also couldn't really understand it. And he came and gave meaning to that old law to help people understand it and re-emphasize certain things about it and de-emphasize things. And the thing is that the people that come up and say that it's fictional are the fools, are total fools, because they will not read it. They will not understand it. Even the intellectuals read the Bible. There are lots of people that read the Bible because you won't understand our society unless you read the Bible, unless you read other kinds of religious texts and stuff. You won't be able to see the significance of the Bible towards all the other texts, because the other texts are usually just laws, just do this, don't do that, and all that stuff. People think that the Bible is like that, but once you've read through the Bible, you realize that some parts of it they're like that, but for the most part, it's not anything like that. It's about describing the behavior of people. And Tolkien, who wrote the Lord of the Rings, he was Christian, and I think he was Christian, wasn't he? There was a number of writers that are Christian, and they just basically the stories, their fictional stories, have had such an effect on people, and then they just don't look back behind it to see that the person was Christian. That's the thing, is that's kind of scary, is that people are going to go into historical revisionism, wipe away all this stuff, and then it'll be just like when the communists take over. They basically erase all the names from the books. They leave the books, but you can't associate one philosophy from another. You can't discern them. You can't associate which books are related to which other books. And that was to prevent people from being influenced by other texts. They wanted to change, they wanted to control the people by brainwashing them with their own text and diminishing all other texts. And so all these people that are saying, uh, you know, Christ is fiction and things like that, they're basically doing the same thing the communists did. And in Cuba and places like that, where they just took the books and wiped the names from them. Fahrenheit 451, or I think that's Raymond Bradbury's book. That was what that was about. Was essentially what the communists were doing when they when they took over. They would burn the books, and what he said in the book was that the people became the books. They would read the books, they'd memorize the books, and then the people became the books. And so, because before there was the Gutenberg press, people had to go on their memories. They had to recite scripture, and that was required. That's people would read from the Torah and they would memorize verses, and that was how they retained what was in the books for themselves, and then they would preach that to other people. And the books didn't change. It's just that people didn't have they didn't have the money or anything or the riches in order to create those books, because the books were massive. Some texts say that these books were so big and so so there was a time whenever these books were like available to the very rich. I mean, to the priests, and I mean the big churches and stuff like that. In their libraries, they had these big books, and you could read them, but you could only read them in the library. You couldn't take them out, and nobody could, because they were usually fairly heavy books and fairly big. And what the Gutenberg press did is it made it possible to make these books smaller and something you could tote around. And that's when people started really picking up on the Bible, what was in the Bible, because before that, the only parts of the Bible you got were what you heard in in church being preached. And for some people, that was their only text. Whenever they were out on the prairies and whatnot, the Bible was the source of a lot of their stories, and that's the reason why it was so widespread, is because it was one of the largest collection of stories. And others were, the stuff we get from Greek writers, and anyhow, I just stop it here. Anyhow, if you get that, if I talk about Christ and you don't believe in it, understand it's at the very minimal, it's philosophy, okay? But if you believe it, then you believe it's true, then you're a believer, okay? But the difference between the believer and the person who's accepting the philosophy is possibly time. If you don't believe it, then you won't see any truth in it. It won't make sense to you, but some stuff will. See, if you get the philosophy and you apply the philosophy, and if it deems true most of the time, then you'll probably believe it, okay? And that's that's how that works. That's how all philosophy works. If you listen to it and you think about it and then you apply it, then you'll if you find it's true, you'll believe it. Okay, and you'll and but there are other people that will just hear it the first time. They'll take the leap of faith and they'll believe it, and that's really it's best that you take the leap of faith and believe it, because there's a lot of wisdom in there. Otherwise, you're going to have to experience it, experience the what sin does in its effect in the world. And when you've felt it, then you'll probably start believing then. But the leap of faith is the hard part, taking the leap of faith, and that is jumping right into it and accepting it. And even then, you may not be able to really learn from it until you've learned it. But the idea is that um, the idea is just it's just how long it will take you to do it. And the question is I grew up in this, and I can't disprove it, and I don't want to disprove it, and I'm experiencing very metaphysical things right now that I can't explain, and I've I've had my ass kicked quite a bit by the demons, because that's the negative effect, is if you believe and then you don't behave right. God will throw the demons at you. He'll have the demons at your door. He'll let them come right in and beat the shit out of you. And I've had that. I know these guys exist. And some of those guys that are out there saying it's fictional are the demons. The other day I was in Altspace, and this guy came up, and I think his name was Vector 111. And 111 is one of the numbers I see a lot. And I started speaking Jesus toward him. The guy started cowering. He was moving away, and he was turning to his side like as if he was afraid. And I was like, oh my goodness, this guy is demon possessed. I've never seen that happen at all. This guy is demon possessed. And he was cowering. I'd never seen anybody do that before. And I was like, wow. And he started out, he said, I said something, and I said that I had a following at about 2,000, and he says, I bet it's not, I bet it's going to get reduced. I said, it's increasing about 100 every 2 or 3 days. It's not. It's slower than, but it seems like that. And I said some more stuff, and the guy cowered. He was talking about his friend over there. He said this guy's 18 years old, and he made a skull, and he made a little hole in it. He could blow into it, and makes this howling noise that sound like death or whatever. But whenever I told some stuff to this guy, he cowered, and I could tell right then that he was demon possessed. I've been demon possessed. I know what it's like, and that the way to tell that if you're demon possessed is you see numbers. You start seeing those numbers 111, 734, 437. You start seeing lots of. There are a number of people that are watching this video, watching my subscription, that are either demon possessed or demons themselves, and you can tell them from the others in that their accounts are like fresh, and they haven't been used, and they got no postings or anything. Maybe that's just a normal person, but the thing I've really noticed, there are people that tend to have names with numbers in them, and I'm like, why will you put the numbers with the name? Why not just have the name by itself? You put the numbers with it, it makes you seem non-unique. I mean, you use it to make your name more unique by having those numbers in there, but the way I see that is I see that as somebody who's not really a true person. I think if you really cared about your name, you wouldn't make a simple name with a bunch of numbers in creating an account. You would spend more time on it and have it mean something. And that's I mean, you see that of trolls, people that try to, and they don't have any I'm getting a little bit of heartburn right now. You see that of trolls who will not represent themselves. I mean, they're not accountable. They won't be accountable. They don't want to be accountable. They'll have their discussions, but they're not real. But they don't have identities much. They don't have a following. They don't put up postings. They don't put up videos. They only come in to chat against people, and they only give like a simple, very shallow comment. They never say anything of any depth or of any kind of. They don't back their argument, and if they say anything against they'll use very simple phrases like, oh, you believe in that 1,000-year-old blah blah blah, oh, blah, but they won't start talking about the various things that they're confused about in whatever it is you're saying, and or believe they have truth. They won't give it, and that's the thing is that and it's the same whenever people revere me in my postings. They'll say very simple, shallow things. They'll say God blessed and stuff like that, but they won't share a story, or they won't give anything special about themselves, or they won't carry on a discussion. And most of the accounts that I've noticed that have come on, they just seem to they don't seem to really be real people. Some of the accounts were created like 7 years ago, and this reminds me of like people that would bid on objects on or stuff on eBay. The eBay accounts would be created like several years ago, but they had only bidded on like maybe 10 things in the whole time of the account. And you would see a lot of these accounts like this, and it's like somebody had a whole pool full of these things, and then you have to wonder, um, was this pool like used by some sort of agency where they could just use those accounts at any time to bid on objects or bid on stuff when somebody was falling and you know an auction was going the wrong way, so they could come in and bid up the item so that they could buy it back and repost it, so they could keep people from winning it for too low a price. Because they do stuff like that, and I've seen such things happen a million times. And I've been on the net since '88 or '87. Somewhere it was '88 whenever I first started using Unix, and I got my taste of the net. I used Telnet and Usenet. Usenet is pretty much the mother of all chat discussion boards. Before that, there were BBSs. Um, um, I don't know how old Usenet is. I thought I was pretty sure it kind of went back to the 60s, because there were posts floating around in some news groups that were like really, really old. But I started using it back in '88 or '89, somewhere in that vicinity. And the web didn't come on until about '93. And so I predate the web in my usage. And so I've been using the internet for about 30 years. So I know enough about trolls, and I know enough about fake accounts, and I tend not to, I mean, even if you're a real person and you said God blessed or something like that, that's fine, but keep in mind some of the other guys, they're not really there, they might be bots, they might be demons, that they're just there to fluff me up and watch me fall or whatever, and then they'll, so I don't really want a great viewership. I just want to spread word. And so just the Johnny Appleseed of I just want to be like a Johnny Appleseed of little seeds of information that might inspire people to do things that are good, rather than just trying to be like the world, wanting to have 1 million followers, and then you end up like being very concerned about your viewership and trying to make sure that people subscribe and all this shit. And if they're going to subscribe, they're going to subscribe because they like it. But I don't ask people to subscribe, and I'm not looking to make money off of this. And I think it would be very dangerous for me to have anything more than 10,000 viewers, and so I'm perfectly fine. Anyhow, I mean dangerous, and what I mean by dangerous is I just mean that I don't know. I tend to value my privacy. I'm not afraid to have more than 10,000 viewers. It's just I don't want to be yet another 1 million subscriber, somebody who's got some format and is concerned about their icons and all. I mean, if I have viewership, it's because people like my content, or they like what I have to say, and that's the only reason why I'm up here, is that, and if I see, I'm just sharing my enthusiasm for music, and I think I'll probably do some singing today. And I don't always feel like singing, but I might sing today. So